What's up, YouTube? This is Giant Jigglypuff 3 here. I have made a custom entity and I want to show it off. You can't have it its own separate file. I just shoved it under the beehive just because it was more convenient for me. Basically, if in the YAML file, where is that guy? In this guy, if you place the entity in the right location and stuff, I think it's wherever you want, like core 2 or whatever. Then it'll work just fine. But I'm just showing a demonstration of how an entity works, so I don't care. Also, you'll notice that this define is here. Basically, I had it so I can turn it on and off. But we're just gonna go ahead and show off this enemy, and then we're gonna show off in game, like a demonstration of what's going on. So whenever creating an enemy, right, you're going to import a few things. I'm not importing it here because I already have it in the beehive function. I didn't want to import it twice. Anytime we're calling a function above where it's actually defined, we want to declare it up here. And then let's talk about the states in which we want an enemy to be in. So if you haven't watched my previous videos, I'm going to quickly go over it, but I do recommend watching those previous videos. Just about every enemy in the game will have something of this kind of sort, where it's not initialized as 0, initialized is 1, and initialized usually is like the idle state. Sometimes it can be the only state it has, but in our case for enemies it is 1. The alert state, so basically this is when it sees the player. The attack state, where it either chases the enemy or throws a snowball or whatever. Ignore 4 for now. That's just something I wanted to add. A return back to idle. So this is either immediately going back to idle, or if it was from a specific location, such as like a ripper, right? It'll go back to where it spawned. An ow function or ow state, and a die state. Now, I wanted to have this just because I'll show you later. I do kind of make this enemy a little OP, so in order to balance it, I did make it just wait a little bit after it attacks. Now, you don't have to separate the assets like this. I just do, but basically, you have an animation file, or sorry, animation table, in which the enemy uses, and I'll show off where it's used later, but you can imagine this first entry as the first state it can be in, which in our case is the not initialized state. The left one being animation asset, the right one being duration. Duration does not mean, oh, we're going to play this animation and cut it off at 1 second. No. That's how long the animation is going to last. So if you have like someone scratching their head and you say 1 second, it's 1 Mississippi, right? Now, if you have it at 5 seconds, it goes 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi, 5 Mississippi. As well, if you have at half a second, it goes, really quick. So we have that for all the states, and I showed off the states right next to them. We have the markers. So 9 happens to be unused, so I'm using it. You can also use a different number marker, doesn't really matter. Just don't overlap it with one that currently already exists, and I'll explain why later. There is the actor ID. In my case, I made it 420 because 420 doesn't actually exist. But for the model, I decided I'm going to reuse an asset. I'm just going to use Barbecue Mumbo because you don't see it in base game, right? So you'll see that the enemy is Barbecue Mumbo. This is us actually making the enemy, the entity, with the marker, which we have as the unused one, the actor ID, which is this guy, and the new model. If I were to go to the open up this guy, this is the actual actor info, right? This is the starting animation right here, and then this is the animation table. Sometimes you might see this guy as null. That just means it doesn't use an animation table. Does not necessarily mean it doesn't use animations. So this is referring to this guy up here. We have the update function. Okay, we have update functions 1 and 2. So 1 and 2. This first one is your custom update function, and I'll explain what that looks like later. But this guy is the generic enemy update function. So in terms of like, getting hit, collision stuff, right? You want this guy to be in there. Now, actor draw, for the most part, you're just going to use regular actor draw. But if you want the model or whatever to have a bit of a difference, then you would update this function. Not update this function, but like have a draw function that is an updated version of this. Now, I know that this guy says it's unknown over here. That is not unknown anymore. I played around with it and I figured out what it is. Basically, it is the distance in which the entity is loaded in. And I'll explain what that means when I ever actually get there. This is draw distance. I believe if it's 0, it just uses the default one, but I could be wrong. So I don't actually know completely what it does, and I don't want to give off misinformation. Shadow scale, so every entity has a little black shadow underneath it that's somewhat transparent, and this is just how big it is. And then I don't know what this last guy does, not gonna lie, sorry. So going back to this guy, I'll explain what these values do later, but know that I like to define values because I don't like random magic numbers happening within the code itself. There will be a few instances of magic numbers just because like, I was testing some stuff out. But for the most part, I tried my best to avoid repeating ones. So this BSS will not make sense right now, but know that these are just values that are modifiable. And they're not necessarily data. Data is meant to be static, not changing. BSS is more of stuff that you can modify or store values in. So let's go to the actual code itself, where we're going to start with the update function. So in the update function, you're going to see most likely some kind of initialize if statement. If this, and this refers to this specific enemy, like not like the type of enemy, but this specific object. If this guy is not initialized, this is by default false, and so this would make it true. We're going to do a few generic things. One thing we're going to do is we're going to set the collision. So we're saying attached to this marker, right, we are going to have 3 functions. This one is what happens when the enemy hits the player. This one is whenever the player hits the enemy and does not kill it. This is whenever the player hits the enemy and kills it. So this takes precedence over this one. As far as when this stuff gets triggered, we're actually going to look back at the table up here. Remember, this is the marker ID as 9. I'm actually going to go to the collision table. So this is a table that you can modify. The size of it is normally 187. I made it 188 because I added my own guide to it. And I will go over a breakdown of what all these values mean. But know that I placed my entry at this very bottom point right here. Let me actually open up the notepad. Ignore that this says small bull. This is also where I did the small bull stuff. But basically, to go over it, these all pertain to whenever the player has a certain hitbox active. Claw swipe, roll, jumping on them, pecking, beak barge, whatever. They have their own values. This hex can be broken down into bits. This first bit is basically what happens to Banjo. Is it like a bounce off or a damage bounce off? And then how far does Banjo go? This second one is whenever you make this kind of contact, what state does the entity get put in? If you see 1-0, which is a 2, that means that it is the death state, more or less. And then if you see 0-1, that's like the alternate state. So as an example, if you were to hit a snippet with like a roll attack, it would flip over first, making it into a different state. Same thing I think happens with what is an example? Like, does Big Bud have that? Maybe. I don't remember. But snippet for sure. I don't know what this guy does. Sorry. This guy, what was this guy? I have like notes on this and shit too. I just don't remember what it does. Oh, this is how much damage Banjo takes from touching this thing in a specific, if you like jump on him or whatever. This is how much damage Banjo would take. This is how many hits it takes to trigger like the interaction. So for Claw Swipe to kill the enemy, you need to hit 3 Claw Swipes, right? And I say how many times it takes to hit. This is assuming that the enemy has a base health of 100. The actual base health of the enemy is always going to be 99. I have modified my guy to be 200. So it will actually take 6 Claw Swipes in order for the enemy to die. And I'll explain how I did that later. In order to kill him with roll, it takes 4. In order to kill him with beak barge, it's 2. Beak buster is 2, etc. Right? So this last one is the bundle that we are dropping whenever we knock the enemy out. So, like, knock him into this like either alternate state or the death state. In our case, I have these all as 0. However, this top one, the one that's outside of the brackets, is the commonality. So if it's here, it's kind of like an or statement. So I did make it so that each one of these instances, whenever you kill, it does drop the first bundle. In our case, the first bundle is 1 honeycomb. You can go 0 for nothing, 1 for 1 bundle, 2 for bundle number 2, 3 for bundle number 3. And they just happen to be honeycomb, 1 honeycomb, 2 honeycombs, and 3 honeycombs. So moving from there, going back to here, we have set the collision for these guys, and these are the functions, right? And I will get to these guys specifically later. The starting health, remember I had it starting at 200 instead of the typical 99. You can set it to whatever you want. Again, default is 99. The health base thing is based off of 100 health, so it's kind of weird to me that they default health to 99 instead of 100. So don't know what happened there. The barbecue mumbo enemy, the model is huge, so I do scale it down to like 1/10 of its normal size. That's just something I do. You don't have to do that. This is for, sometimes you might have an interaction of, has the player met this enemy before? As an example, the beehive has an interaction. The beehive with the bees has an interaction. The termite says, like, hey, like, nice shorts or whatever, right? So that's what that guy means. Back to this entire thing, you want to say that initialization is completed or true. I actually don't know what this guy does, but it happens to be true for a lot of different entities. I want to say it's just a second initialization one, so just set it to be true. I was trying to do something fancy, so this is my own personal guy. This is a sound effect that is also used for the mumbo, chanting and stuff, and so I just have it stored here, so I don't have to call it back again. You can do something like that. And then once it's basically all initialized, I want to set it to be in the first idle state. And it goes back to this animation table where I'm saying loop the animation that is supposed to be in the first state. So that's this guy right here. In our case, it is the mumbo sleeping animation with a duration of this guy. I do have some debug statements. I'm going to show them off real quick. But basically, on the screen, whenever you get near the enemy, we will see what state it's in, the health that it currently has, and the distance the player is from the enemy. Now, I use the lifetime value property a lot. You don't have to do this. You can do it based off animations, but I was playing around with those animations so much that I'm just going to use the lifetime value of, hey, do it for this duration. And every tick of the game will subtract a little bit from this lifetime duration. Now, the enemy will need to know basically the player position, the distance from the player, this is a cool function that says give me the current enemy's position and looking direction, as well as the player's position. Let me actually paint this in. Y'all know I love paint. Basically, it's saying if your enemy is here, right, and it is facing this direction, and your player is over here, it is saying, in terms of like positioning. Let's do like this guy. How far back is the enemy? Like, if imagine like there's like an imaginary thing here. How far back is this? So this is the distance, right? Um, is it? And this can be like a positive or a negative number. It is the distance horizontal, like left or right, basically. And it's also giving us the angle in which the player is at. So I thought that was really cool. I like using this function. And I'll show you where I use it later. I'm also saying if the enemy is in one of these states, it's anywhere between the alert and returning to idle, right? I want to have the entity continuously look at the player. And it'll turn at a specific degree, right? Now for the actual states. We don't actually ever get to this initial state, or not initialized state, because I do, at the very start, set it to a 1, so it never goes here. At the 1, right, I am saying kind of at the beginning of the animation and halfway through the animation, we're going to be playing the banjo snoring sound effects at the position of the enemy. Let me actually make this bigger. My bad, sorry. Oh, it went all the way there. Nice. So make the snoring effect, right? And we're just going to do a constant check on whether the player is within the alert distance. Actually, now I need to bring this back up. The alert distance I set it at is 1500. And then is Banjo, like the player, in front of the enemy. So you can sneak attack this enemy. It won't see you. If so... Just drop the controller. That's fine. So if those two conditions are met, we are going to go to the alert state, where Mumbo does like the waking up, from his slumber kind of thing, right? And we're also going to set the duration of the lifetime value to the duration of him waking up. If the player were to escape the distance in time, right, I want the enemy to just return back to the idle state. Just go back to where you were, right? And this is like a whole animation. In this case, the animation is Mumbo reclining back in his chair. And then otherwise, if the player is still within the distance, right, I want the enemy to attack Banjo. And the way I'm doing this is I'm basically just using the transformation animation. So I also said, like, screw, I'm also going to use the music for the transformation. This is that sound effect from before of Mumbo chanting to himself. So if I were to go here, this is him muffling to himself, and it's playing on like a reverb kind of thing. That's what this trigger callback by index is doing. And then while he's chanting, right, I want the position of the enemy to go up. I want him to kind of rise into the air. And yeah, this is a hard-coded value. My bad. I should have had it as not a magic number, like the ones I did up here. Please forgive me. But then I also said at this point, at the 2.5 mark, if the enemy has not already attacked, then we're going to attack, and we're going to set this to true. So let me actually go to these functions to show off what I'm doing. At this point, I'm saying I want Mumbo to make the umanak sound, and then I also want, if Banjo is not using Wonder Wing, to just take damage, and that's what these combinations do. This is the generic Banjo should be interrupted thing, and this is the call that guy, call the interruption thing. And then I also want to emit an explosion. So you're going to see at the player's position, I am exploding on the player. So we said that it's equal to, we did the attack or whatever. Once the attack animation is done, to make it kind of more balanced, I gave it a wait time before your next attack. And I said, just wait this duration of the next attack. And also, we can now say that the animation, the attack thing is done, so we can get rid of that, return it back to normal. From here, we're lowering the enemy back down so that the player can attack it. And then we are saying that if the player is still in the distance within the time that the enemy went back down, we're going to go back to attacking. Okay? And then we're just going to replay that music or whatever. But however, if the player is not within the distance after it has already like lowered all the way down, we're going to return to the idle state, which is just it going to like the chill, relaxing state. Right? Now you'll notice that I never called the ow and the die states. Now let me actually show you why. If you remember, we actually had where is it? In the initialize stuff, these two ow and die functions. If I were to go to them right now, right? This is whenever the player does damage to the enemy, but does not kill, we are going to make the enemy go erg, right? And then also play the animation there. And then it sets the state to 6. So that's when this guy happens. Once the enemy gets hit, it goes into the alert state, right? It checks around to see where the player is. Is the player within distance? So if you were outside of the alert range, but within the escape range, basically, and you shoot an egg, Mumbo can see you. Mumbo's awake now. As well as the die one. So this is when the player has done enough damage to lower the health to 0. It sets it to the die state, and we have it doing the grublin sound, right? As well as going back to here, saying do this. This is the despawn function for most enemies. Now, we also have to set the collision to be off, because otherwise, until this fully goes through, you can still take damage from touching Mumbo, which we don't want, right? So we're going to need to turn that collidable off. And then there shouldn't be a default case. So now that we've gone through the entire file, I can show off what it does. Okay. So you'll notice that once I hit this, let me actually go back to here 1 second. Once I went back to this distance, once I'm within here, we can now see the enemy's info. It is now spawned into the game, right? With the health being 200, like I said it before. Remember, the starting health is 200 here. And then the state, like the default idle state, is 1. Let me actually make a save state here, just so we can reuse this if we need to. I don't want to touch the nose just because I don't want to touch the nose. Now, saw that we were within the 1500, so he woke up. Let me actually just go back just to show what happens if we are not in that distance. And yeah, his eyes aren't closed. That's just the animation. Can't do anything about it. So we are slightly out of distance. He is not waking up. We go in there. He is now alert. He goes into the 3 to start his attack. Once he attacks, it's just going to be a damage at our location. Unless we're wondering, he will hit us. Right? And it shows that explosion thing. And now he's returning back down. Oh, it's like wait period, whatever, right? Wait period, he sees that we're still in here. He's going to go back to attacking. I'm going to use Wondering now. I did not take damage. He's going to go back down. I'm going to escape out of the range, which remember was 2,500. And you'll see that it goes to 5, return back to the idle state, and then back down to the idle state. So we are now good. to show off him being triggered. Remember, I said that if you're... Oh, I woke him up. My bad. I should just do this. My bad. I didn't mean to wake him up. So we're gonna go around him. Okay. We are now behind him, right? So no matter how close I go now, and I'm actually gonna save state here because you'll understand in a second. No matter how close we get, we will not be waking him up until we cross in front of him. In which case, he turns and sees us, right? And because he's always changing direction, he will be monitoring us, right? You can also attack him from behind. So watch this. And yes, I made his animation like the shock animation. He was attacking, so it was playing like the sound, but thankfully that one ends. And you'll see that it went all the way down to the 7. So, I'm not sure if you like saw his health as well. Whenever I hit him, it goes down by a certain amount. And even like with like wondering whatever, right? You'll see that his health goes down. And that is the enemy. Before you actually make him spawnable, right? What you need to also do is add him or it, whatever your thing, to the spawn queue. In my case, I have it in the core 2, and so I have them added here. I still don't know what these flags do. I just copied a different entity. Make sure that the entity you copy has the same kind of behaviors as the one that you're making until we figure out what these flags do. And then also remember to put the entity in the actual map setup file. I got lazy. I didn't want to do that. So instead, I just kind of like jerry-rigged it. And I said, if you see a big butt, just replace it with my new enemy. So hopefully that was enlightening. Hopefully you guys can make your own enemies. I will be uploading this code to my GitLabs. So anyone can look at it. All you have to do is look for the L Puff Puff the third new enemy, and comment it out in order to have it being triggered. But thanks you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned something.